Lot to get to in our forecast. Today's high was 1 degree away from a record 95 at Kenner today. The record is 96. Now tomorrow, the record at Kenner is 95, and I think we may tie it. A lot of sunshine outside. It was a pretty day, but it was also hot. Heat index right now 100 degrees. It's late September now. We should be seeing a drop in temperatures, and the normal highs are falling, but ridge of high pressure is keeping us pretty hot. Humidity hasn't been terrible. 46% humidity, a dew point of 70, and with the temperature of 94 degrees, that's why the humidity, relative humidity, is actually a little bit lower because the dew points aren't horrible. We're in the 90s right now on both sides of the lake. The evening will be in the 80s. Humidity is a little bit higher and might actually see a slight drop in humidity briefly tomorrow, but otherwise staying in the upper 60s to lower 70s. So the humidity not really going anywhere until it looks like Friday we might get a secondary surge of some drier air, albeit slight, within this big upper high, which continues to dominate our forecast. Then we're going to be closely watching the upper pattern. The deepening trough by the end of the weekend and early next week will send a cold front on through, and the Euro has a second surge of this upper trough moving south, reinforcing the cool or mild dry air, but also perhaps keeping anything in the tropics away from us. Right now, we've got some isolated showers that have been passing through within a little mix of sun and clouds at times, but for the most part, we have been dry, and that is going to be the trend over the next several days. We'll start to get into some changes by late next week. Of course, we've been talking about Fiona, but really our focus is on Invest 98, which remains an unorganized system, which also remains very frustrating when you're trying to forecast something that is not there yet. Here's what's going on right now. There is still dry air to the north and west across much of the Caribbean. We also have, as you can kind of watch the motion, wind shear, which looks like it is causing some issues for this system to even organize. Plus, it's still fairly close to land, Trinidad and Tobago, and then this is northern Venezuela. So the system itself, very low latitude, near land, wind shear, dry air. At the moment, everything going against it. The models, though, are saying, well, that is true for now, but it will begin to organize once it gets into the Caribbean. Big question is just how organized does it get once it's in the Caribbean? And it looks like probably by the end of the week and starting into the weekend, continuing to move westward, south of Jamaica, probably later on the day, Saturday. Sunday, early next week, it begins to be drawn northward by the upper trough, which is bringing our cold front on through. Then if it enters the Gulf, where exactly does that occur? More the Yucatan Channel or western Cuba would be better for us. Few models indicating maybe more the Yucatan before turning northward. Here's why we're looking more to the east or western Cuba for a better scenario for us. This is the GFS thinking in the upper atmosphere, what would actually steer the storm. The GFS has a strong upper high to the west. There goes what could become Hermine, moving from the Yucatan, getting more into the central Gulf of Mexico by the end of next week. So we're looking at now more than 7 days out. The upper high starts to weaken a bit, and then the storm kind of just drifts slowly toward Florida, kind of at a painstaking pace. That's not what we want, because that would keep the storm off of our coast and we would have more of an easterly wind that would cause some coastal flooding. The Euro is what we're hoping for. Note the Euro, different scenario, deep upper trough. That would start pulling the storm northward sooner. And then note by Thursday into Friday, when the storm was just sitting in the central Gulf, the Euro has it already moving across Florida and gone. So the Euro has a more progressive upper pattern, which would draw the storm northward faster, keeping it well away from us. The Euro not quite as strong with the upper steering, which might leave it into the Gulf of Mexico a bit longer. So a big question, which we're not going to know until early next week, is where the storm actually makes it into the Gulf of Mexico. That remains one of the big unknowns with this system. There are many unknowns and still more unknowns than knowns at this point. So in the near future, it's more of a wait and see what develops. What we know right now is that there is no storm. Tomorrow, the first day of fall, not going to feel like it. 95 degrees. We'll see that weak, somewhat of a frontal system, really more just some drier air. Then the stronger front moves through, bringing in some beautiful weather by early next week. And hopefully this system stays off to our east. It'll reinforce that beautiful weather for all of next week.